So the next portion we are going to be talking about is that guidance curriculum and the duties and activities associated with it. So intrapersonal effectiveness is where students have a positive self-concept, utilizing executive functioning skills, behaving appropriately to situations and to their environments. So some possible I can statements that you could see are: I can become aware of my personal traits. I can describe myself physically, emotionally, and intellectually. I can identify things that are the same or different between me and others. I can identify my feelings and why they are important. And I can identify problems. These are all things that could come into the classroom. And what's interesting is, especially with the 4 components of guidance curriculum, is that it's for all grade levels. Of course, it is tailored specifically to meet the needs and that educational setting, but this is something that you could see in middle and high school. The next one we have is interpersonal effectiveness, where students interact effectively with a diverse population, utilize effective and appropriate communication skills, recognize personal boundaries and individual rights and needs of others, utilize effective conflict resolution skills, and develop healthy relationships. So this is something that I am noticing that some of the kiddos at Bauer need more help with. And that was also something I noted that a lot of teachers also said they were struggling with as well. I see it in the classroom where students do not have that interpersonal effectiveness, and it could be, and I strongly believe, that it is because of COVID and how we were out for so long. And they missed such a pivotal time in their lives where they learn how to problem solve. And with them being home with parents, it could very well be that these students did not get a chance to problem solve because they're just interacting with someone over the computer. So with that, some I can statements could possibly be: I can behave appropriately in various school settings. Think about all of the different posters we have up around the school. I can accept rewards and consequences for my own behaviors. I can know and follow the rules. I can appreciate my own culture. I can respect others as individuals, and I can relate to others. This one's like such an important one for a school, so I really appreciate that that is part of that guidance curriculum. We also do post-secondary planning and career readiness in elementary because you can never start too early. So that post-secondary planning and career readiness is where students are motivated to succeed in personal endeavors, demonstrate career exploration skills, possess the knowledge and skills to gather and plan information for post-secondary and career readiness, and demonstrate awareness and the importance of education. So some I can statements that you could see for this portion of guidance curriculum is: I can develop my own academic or career potential. I can take advantage of my educational opportunities. I can identify attitudes and behaviors that lead to successful learning. I can develop leadership skills. I can make connections between personal skills, interests, and abilities that may affect my career choice. And all of these things are wonderful to do in the classroom with students because they're starting to see what they are good at. They're starting to notice, especially in 3rd grade, from what I've seen, they're noticing strengths, those weaknesses, and you want them to be able to develop their mindset of how they feel about things. And it's really important to guide them in those avenues as well. So here is another portion of it. It is personal health and safety. And with this one, students incorporate wellness practices, resiliency, positive coping skills, and assertiveness and personal protection. So some I can statements for this component of curriculum activities could be: I can understand wellness as a healthy element of functioning. I can learn techniques for managing stress. I can summarize what I can and cannot control in my life. I can effectively manage transitions. I can set boundaries for physical, emotional, and social protection. And I can appreciate the rights of others, including kindness and respect. So, this one's incredibly important as well because sometimes students do not know boundaries when it comes to wellness, managing stress. And sometimes we don't know as students what to do in those situations. So it's really important for the school counselor, if it is needed in the classroom, to come in and work with those students on those things. So this is something that I had to create for class. So it says your students are my priority. So the way that this would work in the classroom is that none of the lessons would have to be alike because the students are not alike and classrooms are built differently with rules and the way expectations. So it would be during instructional time. The lessons are usually 30 to 45 minutes long, and it could be 1 to 2 times per month per teacher. And this could also be integrated with curriculum. That is something that I personally did not know with school counselors, is that based off whatever the teacher is teaching at the moment, counselors can come in and just integrate it right into a lesson. So if I was a school counselor at this time, I would have a Google Calendar that is sent out to teachers with specific times available. And this is actually something that I did notice that Ms. Harlow did as well. So I went ahead and incorporated it because I felt like it was incredibly easy to just go and plug it in and then it goes into your Outlook. So I thought that information was great. So this is the component of responsive duties, and there are 3 of them. And here it says 3, but it should be 4, so I apologize. So one of them is preventative services, where the counselor engages with students before issues become chronic or problematic. So think about those conflict resolution skills and things like that. We notice that there's a problem and we address it immediately. So students will receive services for those foundational skills to help with that. Remedial services is interventions which are necessary after a situation has taken place, assisting the student to resolve the problem. So this could be several different things with remedial, and it just really depends on the student and the issue, because it could be something that a teacher or counselor might think is a minor problem, but to the student could be major. Crisis services are a critical incident has occurred and the most immediate level of intervention is necessary. And then student crisis outcries. That's where, if you notice, if a student has experienced child abuse, self-harm, or neglect, that's where you would contact Child Protective Services. And counselors, yes, you can contact the counselor as well if it's a more serious situation like that. But it's really important that you make that first call, because it's coming from you and you're the one that the student felt comfortable talking to. If they know that I told my teacher something incredibly personal that I was scared to tell her, and she's going to go and tell someone else, a lot of times something worse could happen, or the student could just completely withdraw. So just know that if there's an instance where you have to contact Child Protective Services, a school counselor will be there to guide you and can guide you, but it's really important that you make that first initial call. And we also have some more crisis services here. So that crisis service is a critical incident has occurred and the most immediate level of intervention is necessary. And then same thing with this student crisis outcries. it's just going more in depth with that. So if there is a crisis on campus, you can contact the principal, the assistant principal, and then your school counselor. So that's usually the order that is supposed to be followed with a crisis on campus. The front office is going to be your lifeline in a crisis if you cannot find the school counselor right away. The school counselor has their own line at the school, which everyone should have access to call as well in an extension. And then the safety of you and your students is priority. If the situation does become volatile, remove the other students immediately, but do not leave the child alone. Yes, there could be instances where the child is being incredibly violent and you have to get your students out for safety reasons. And usually at that point, that's where your buddy teacher comes to help, or you could take them to the buddy teacher's room, but that student cannot be left alone. Yes, it can be scary. Yes, you don't want to be in harm's way, but that student cannot be left alone. And then another thing that I had for if I was the school counselor is just that making appointments. So there's going to be a drop-off mailbox where their school counselor passes are filled out, and the counselor would come and pull them for that moment. So that's something that they would fill out on their own. And then, of course, if teachers have any concerns, they could drop into the office. If the door is open, they could dial the extension or email the teacher. Email the counselor with any concerns they have, but without the student's full name. You usually only use those initials. And then I'll come to your classroom, or the counselor would come to your classroom when available to pull that student. Always make sure to contact the front office if there's any concerns that you need help with immediately. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about today was Senate Bill 179. This is actually something I just recently found out about and was very interested to hear about it, especially since a school counselor's duties are not always sure as to what they're supposed to be doing. Because I have seen in the past where school counselors, unfortunately, are asked to do duties that are not part of that comprehensive school counseling program. So Senate Bill 179 was passed last year in September, and it is where school boards are required to adopt a policy where school counselors spend at least 80% of their time on duties that are components of that comprehensive school counseling program. So if the school board cannot comply with this because of staffing needs or shortage, then the policy must include the reasons why the counselor must spend less than 80% of their work time on components of that counseling program. They must list the counselor's duties that are not components of that counseling program. And they set a percentage of time the counselor must spend on components of the counseling program. And this is something that districts have to annually address with compliance. So I thought that that was something interesting that I wanted to share with everyone. And that was, like I said, just something that was implemented last year. So thank you so much for viewing this presentation on the Comprehensive School Counseling Program. Underneath, you are going to see some do's and don'ts that were provided by the Texas Education Code, and I hope you enjoy it.